I would like to call to order the regular governing board meeting of the Jefferson Elementary School District for March 23rd, 2022. May I please get members present?
Here.
Maria Brizuela is absent. Shakil Ali,
Here.
Andrea Jordan,
Here.
Clayton Koo.
Here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. I believe Vincent and Barron, are you guys leading tonight's pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Cool. Thank you. Next is the governance team meeting guidelines. Governance team members will review the governance team meeting guidelines. Next is approval of the agenda.
Mr. President, would this be a good time to ask to take items off the consent agenda?
Mr. Fidelis?
Okay. So before we approve the agenda, I would like us to take off item 10B and 10C.
10B and 10C.
Yes. Actually, pardon me, just 10C.
I make a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment that Trustee Ali mentioned.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. Next is item 6A, public hearing. Public hearing on proposed adoption of developer fee study and increase of statutory school facilities fee. The governance board of the Jefferson Elementary School District will consider input from the public on proposed adoption of a developer fee justification study for the district and an increase in the statutory school facilities fee established by the district against residential construction and reconstruction at $4.79 per square foot and against new commercial or industrial construction at 78 cents a square foot as approved by the State Allocation Board on February 23rd, 2022. The adoption of the study and the increase of the level 1 fee are necessary to fund the construction of needed school facilities to accommodate growth due to development. I will open the public hearing at 7:05 p.m. Are there any speakers on this item? There are none. Okay, seeing none, I will also close the public hearing at 7:05 p.m. as well. Next item is item 7, special presentations. 2022 JESD Science, Technology, Engineering, Mathematics STEM Fair. Anthony Sujisaka, STEM Fair Facilitator and Vice Principal at Fernando Rivera Intermediate School, will give a presentation on acknowledging the participants and winners in the San Mateo County STEM Fair. Mr. Sujisaka.
Good evening, members of the board and cabinet members. My name is Anthony Sujisaka, as you said. I'm the Vice Principal at Fernando Rivera, and I was the JESD Elementary Science Fair Coordinator. So I'm also here with 2 of our students who are going to come up and speak a bit. I just wanted to introduce them before I do. So first we have Barron Franklin. He won a grand prize at the Green Scholars Science Fair, as well as 2nd place at the San Mateo County Science Fair, and 2nd place at the Golden Gate Science Fair. So come on up, Barron.
My project is sorry, I forgot.
All right, well, let's hear it for Barron. I know he did a couple projects. So yeah, he had a couple projects. He had, I think it was jiu-jitsu kicks. Is that correct? Judo throws. Sorry, correction. All right, and then we also have with us Vincent Ng, a student at Ben Franklin Middle School, and he placed as an honorable mention in the San Mateo County Science Fair. So come on up and give the board a minute of your time. Just 1 or 2 cents about your project.
Okay. My project was studying how surface area affects, how heat affects objects with different surface areas.
Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you to our students, and thank you for listening.
Cool. Thank you. Any questions or comments from board members?
Just wanted to say thank you for being here and for all your hard work. We're really proud of the work that you've done and proud of you representing our district.
I don't want to say the same exact thing. So what I will say is that this is one of the nights that we look forward to the most. And usually we're able to see the experiments and, or, you know, projects and things. So we know things are different right now. So anyway, excuse me, getting involved in, you know, doing science projects. I commend all of you, even the ones that didn't win. And I did have a question about the project about heat and surface area. I was wondering, what did you notice, or, you know, what did you find?
There wasn't anything really, like any new discoveries, but I mainly discovered that objects with more surface areas, but the same volume would be able to absorb more heat.
Okay, very good. So like I said before, thank you for even submitting something and coming to our board meeting tonight.
I will say I agree with the sentiments shared. It's wonderful to be able to see you in person and be able to commend you for your work, and also to see the support that stands with you and behind you. And while you are probably just meeting us or seeing us for the first time, it gives us great pride that you are able to represent our school district and our city and our communities here. So you probably don't hear it enough, but remember that we are deeply, deeply proud of you and extend our gratitude to the staff and to your families for supporting you through this process. Congratulations.
I don't want to echo everybody else's comments too, but just congratulations to our winners, as well as all the students participated, as well as all the district staff who made this possible, because without them, it wouldn't even have happened. Also, just on top of that, we just have a couple of things to present to our winners this evening.
So we have a small token of appreciation for Baron Franklin, and it's a certificate of appreciation and a certificate for first place in excellence in science.
All right.
And then I have another certificate for excellence in science for Vincent Ng.
Thank you again, and
Can I say something else? The young man's name, I think, is Barron, right? I just want you to know that one of the most famous public speakers, his name is Les Brown. He tells a story about the first time he got up to speak publicly and he forgot everything, you know, so don't let that hold you back. Keep moving forward.
thank you. Please, I just wanted to say congratulations again, and join me in giving them another round of applause as well. Thank you for joining us tonight. So we're going to move along. Next item is item 8, a board member acknowledgement and commendations. I will start on my left.
No problem. I'd like to commend, first of all, everyone that came here tonight and that followed the strongly recommended guidance of wearing a mask. So that's number one. And I'd also like to commend our superintendent and cabinet on what I heard was a very successful professional development day for a group of our teachers, and in particular, the keynote speaker. And I hear, Ms. Scott, that you were instrumental in getting you and Superintendent Vidal. Well, I'll let you both, share the glory. So, but yeah, so I heard it was very successful, and I really appreciate that. Our board, we really value professional development, personal development. We're all lifelong learners. So thank you very much. And my commendation goes to our superintendent and cabinet.
Yeah, I heard the same, and I want to just say thank you. Professional and personal development is vital to not just your own growth, but to the growth of the communities that you belong to. So I also want to thank you for your leadership, Superintendent Vidalis, because I know that a lot of times you deflect and defer, but I do believe that the success of programs such as these to develop our staff and our district leaders starts at the top. And so I want to say thank you to you first, but I hope that the personal development that you were able to participate in continues to enrich your soul. We're facing very difficult times, and I know that I appreciate in my work life to have any level of professional development. It keeps me encouraged during these challenging times. I also just wanted to say there were quite a few students that were able to participate. I always say that North County is the neglected region of San Mateo County, but Pacific Islanders engineering, engineering, fun, education, science, and technology is an organization that was founded by a couple, a teacher and educator who was an educator at Jefferson High School who is now teaching at Carlmont. And his wife met at UC Berkeley, and together they formed Pie Fest. And their intention was to try to create this arena for disenfranchised communities, one being the Pacific Islander community. So they held this in Redwood City, and to their surprise, 300 students with their families that were from every corner of the rainbow came out. And it was a free event, and they were just blown away. But I was astounded to find out, and I think maybe it was of educator Matthew Matalele's connections, that of the 300, a third of those families were from right here in Daly City. So I thought that was wonderful. So their hope is to extend this event again in the summer, right before school starts, and they will be offering it at Jefferson High School, and that's what we were just confirming last week. I also want to thank Superintendent, Trustee Ali, because I have really appreciated being in the meetings with Umoja. I get a lot of insight from what's happening here in North County, but he's also been able to bring a lot of resources that many times sit and live in the central and south part of our county that he has been bringing here to North County. So I don't know if he's mentioned before, but I definitely think you should continue to share that invitation with everyone here, because I've been finding those meetings very insightful because they're very focused on our communities here. And then happy Women's History Month. Let's not forget to continue to celebrate women. While it ends on the 31st, there's a lot of great women in this room and a lot of great women in my life that I continue to thank every day, because I know I wouldn't be able to sit and lead and or participate in public service in any way if I wasn't on their shoulders. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't really have many comments other than just hoping everybody stay safe and healthy. I know there's another variant out there again, so just hoping everybody stays safe, healthy, get vaccinated, and just a safe spring break as well too. Next is superintendent comments.
Ms. Jordan, did you speak?
Did you want to speak? No, no. Okay.
Oh, she passed.
Yeah, she passed.
Okay. I'm so used to Ms. Jordan always having a word. In a good way, always a good way. I'll never take it back. I do miss the days where we could fill a boardroom with students and parents. And today we limited it only to the students who moved on to or who were awarded at the county level. Generally, we invite all the students who move on to the county from our district. So 3 students from 4th grade, 3 from 5th grade, 3 from 6th, 7th, and 8th. And every child comes with between 2 and 5 and sometimes more individuals. And so we just knew that we could not accommodate that at this level. So we've just only invited those who were honorable mentions or placed at the county. So we're so glad to have them. So good to see students in our meetings again. And we'll try to find more opportunities for that. Just wanted to let the board know that the measure that you voted to put onto the June ballot is now named Measure J. And it's great. It's Measure J for Jefferson Elementary. So there's some alliteration there. Just to give you information about that. And if you remember, the measure that the board placed on there was for the district to continue funding the completion of all the fencing projects across our schools to build more outdoor learning and eating spaces and to construct where we can some more off-street drop-off and pickup zones. So it's really around safety and security and keeping our kids and our community safe. So I hope that it will get the support that it needs from the community. As Mr. Ali mentioned, we did have our professional development day on Monday. This was for certificated staff. We did invite Dr. Victor Rios. Those of you who were at CSBA remember him. I did not ask him to stand up and show us if he was wearing socks, but I did force him to share that experience with our teachers. He was so used to pandemic teaching that he only dressed from the waist up. And so he shows up at an in-person event and forgot to pack his socks because he never had to think about that for a while. So he looked great as always. He was dressed perfectly from the waist up. I did not ask him to stand up and show below. But he was inspiring as always, and I think really moved our staff to look beyond the color of somebody's skin and the expectations that we attribute to that, and to think twice about behaviors that we see in students and try to get to, what else might be going on. I think those are his messages. We had about 89% of our eligible staff join us for that day. And Ms. Jordan, you asked about our certificated staff and their professional development day. Classified staff back in January, we had about 87% of eligible staff, which is amazing considering that was like the height of the Omicron surge. And so we had 87% at that point. So as I've mentioned, the COVID results keep dropping in our community and also in our schools. Last week we had 10 cases, both identified in our testing program and reported. So we're happy about that. Excuse me. And lastly, last Friday there was an event at Skyline in conjunction with a high school district. It was a CTE event. I don't know if Manufo and Ali, Mr. Ali, you guys have been involved with CTE and trying to get projects up here. It was a wonderful event. Students got a bus and they were taken to the new building at Skyline. I don't know. It has not been used very much. It's all the way at the end of the parking lot where the parking lot used to be and overlooks San Pedro Valley and Pacifica and the ocean. And it was a clear day. So our kids were in awe, of the beauty. And so they got to explore themes of engineering and all of the different pathways that exist in the high school district that are also extended in the community college program, and just to give them a vision. They met a Master Chef winner, Claudia Sandoval. I'm not a Master Chef person, so I don't know her, but she was really cool, and she gave everybody a book, one of her books. So we'll have our kids cooking easy Mexican food here for the next few years. So that was really inspiring. So, oh, and then lastly, next week, every staff member, every student will be sent home with a test kit that they are encouraged to use prior to returning to school on April 11th. That was really effective, I thought. Last December, when we had our students do that, we had about 400 students not come to school on Monday because they took that test. And now we get to offer it to our staff as well. So.
Thank you very much. Next item is item 9A, consent agenda. The administration recommends approval of the starred items on the rest of tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. Next item is item 9B, resolution number 22-03-23B to excuse Manufo Linga Anawai from regular board meeting on March 9th, 2022. Pursuant to Education Code 35-120, 9C, the board will consider request for passage of a resolution to excuse Manufo Linga Anawai absence on March 9th, 2022 due to hardship.
So moved.
Second.
First and a second, may I please get a roll call?
Ms. Leah Inga Anawai,
Aye.
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Koo,
Aye. That was unanimous. So next item is an item pulled earlier, item 10C, contracted services, Book Nook Inc. The administration recommends approval of a contract with Book Nook Inc. in the amount of $68,842 for summer tutoring using learning loss mitigation funds. Approximately 250 students will receive 30 minutes of reading tutoring twice weekly for 6 weeks over the summer. Mr. Ali, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, I asked this to be pulled so that board members could hear about this and also the public, since I actually teach English and I love libraries, librarians, and books. And so I had a question, just what is this? And when Superintendent Vidales told me about it, I thought it was worth everyone hearing.
So Book Nook is an organization. They existed pre-pandemic as an in-person tutoring support to schools. And in 2020, when everything went virtual, they expanded their virtual tutoring offerings. And what it is one certificated teacher at one end and 3 to 4 students at the other end, each in their own homes, reading the same book in a strategy that's used a lot in elementary school called guided reading format, where questions are asked and students decode and read together, and then comprehension questions are asked as well. And they do it at their level, books that are at their level or just a little bit above their level so that they can be pushed to read harder and harder material. We decided to continue that, even though we're not in a distance learning format. It is an opportunity for students to continue reading during the summer, and it is an option that we want to offer our families who are not able to commit to a 5-day-a-week, full-day summer programming that we're going to offer as well. This is 2 30-minute sessions scheduled at a time slot that the families find convenient for them. So it could be 10:30 to 11 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and another family can choose 2:30 to 3 on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then they get grouped accordingly and provided that offering. So we had good results last year. The kids who participated showed certainly no loss of learning abilities, and many showed some gains. So we want to continue offering that as much as we can. We're using our federal relief funds to be able to support this.
Yeah, thanks so much for, explaining that. I got excited when you were talking to me about it earlier. I grew up, I didn't have to go to summer school. Well, one summer I did. But my mother gave me summer school at home. I had to read books and write reports, everything. So, but I think this is something great that we're extending, and I'm thankful that we're doing this.
So I also echo those sentiments. I'm a book nerd, and I'm actually a part of a book club. I had a book club before I came here today, and so reading the same book together and talking about it, I think is super important. What I might get out of it is going to be different from someone else, and obviously helping with reading and comprehension for our children, I think is super important. And similar to Trustee Ellie, my mom did the same thing with me. I had to write reports, and I'm like, I'm not even in college yet. What is happening? So I do think it's a good skill for our children to have. I did have a question on, you mentioned the students that did participate. It says approximately 250 students. How are those students selected? Are they from the previous group that did it? Does it change? What does that look like?
So last year we utilized a strategy of anybody who was invited to participate in our full day summer program was not invited immediately to participate in this, because we felt like those students, we really would like to have them be enrolled in the full day, 5 day a week, 4 to 6 week program. So we invite the next group of students that we, based on their reading levels and choose the students up to grade level, maybe just a little bit above grade level as a target group. And then last year, there were some glitches with the enrollment process. So not every student, we invited like 450 initially, and we didn't get the 250 enrolled. So then we just invited everybody at the end. Anybody who's interested, first come, first serve, we have 250 slots. So, we got them filled.
Perfect.
So it is sort of a prioritized, staggered invitation.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank Trustee Ali for pulling this off a consent agenda, because I do think it's important that the public and even us as trustees talk about such programs. I can say I was actually going to leave it on consent agenda and didn't think to, because I have had previous conversations when we had Book Nook last year, and Superintendent Vidalis had said that actually it was an affordable program and that it was actually pretty successful, and a lot of the participants and their families had given positive feedback. But I really too wanted to focus on the fact that when we look at learning recovery, I like that we're looking at service providers that can provide quality programming. I have been finding it really interesting to hear some of our neighbors and other school districts who are not able or are not participating in some of these enrichment programs that our students need and families desire for them to have. I was forced to go to summer school. Luckily, my grades didn't reflect it always, but I was made to read every day, and it was enlightening for me to do that with my peers. And being a mother of a special needs child, I have seen Book Nook work with a population that needed that extra support, and I am not an educator, a formal educator, so to see that support live, I really appreciate it, and I hope, and I'm actually very faithful, that the superintendent and team will continue to find, providers such as Book Nook that we can continue to take advantage of to provide these services, quality services for our students. Because I've been unfortunately surprised to find that other districts are not doing the same. So I'm very grateful.
I just want to echo everybody's comments. Thank you, Trustee Ali, for pulling it. I think it's just good to hear about sort of where the dollars that we're actually using for the loss mitigation funds are actually going to support. And I think for the costs, it also benefits so many students along the way too. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and another feature that is attractive about Book Nook, it is, understandably very difficult to try to convince our own staff to work during the summer. People are tired. They really need that month of July to recharge. So Book Nook offers to recruit and supply certificated staff members to participate in this. So that's part of the service that they provide, is that they staff it with certificated, trained staff members who can provide this service so that our staff doesn't have to. Our staff is still offered and invited to do the full day or figure out a way to share that with another staff member, but the in-person. But this virtual is something that they get trained tutors to provide. So,
Thank you. Any other additional comments or questions? If not, this is an action item, so I will entertain a action on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Book Nook in the amount of $68,842 for summer tutoring using learning loss mitigation funds.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. Next item is item 10D, Special Education Department updates. Dr. James Adams, Director of Special Education, will provide updates on the Special Education Department. Dr. Adams.
Hello. Good evening, esteemed board members and fellow cabinet members and colleagues. Thank you so much for inviting us here tonight. I also wanted to introduce some of our amazing program coordinators, Colleen Miller and Malia Mulhern. Malia is relatively new since we haven't been able to come here since COVID, so we'll each be able to give a little bit of presentation tonight from our purpose here. You can advance that, please. So, again, we believe a culture in which promotes everyone belongs in JESD, and over the years, we worked very hard to assure students with varying needs are all served within our district at all possible. We built tremendous programs to serve a wide range of students here in district. Parents and our community is very fortunate to have all their programs where in the past they had to drive or be in buses for long hours all the way down to San Mateo County. So we're making progress and have lots to be proud of. We're going to talk about some things. And we also believe that special education is not a place, but a service or systems of services to meet the needs of students. So this means we're integrated, we're working together. We're doing training, cross-training all the time to assure that it's not a place you go, it's a place to give you support. And so I just wanted to reiterate that. We always do that in our slides, but we all believe that, and we made a lot of progress. So I think what we want to do is we haven't had an opportunity to talk about what we did and how we reacted to the COVID crisis, continued crisis, but when we had to stay at home. So Colleen Miller is going to talk a little bit about that.
Good evening, board, colleagues, community. I am so proud to be standing here today because I'm really proud. I'm really glad to be honoring our staff in the special education department, and I hope some of them are listening today. COVID-19 was a horrible, horrible situation. It continues to be, but our staff really rose to the occasion. And one thing that I really want to acknowledge is how quickly we were able to pivot. And one of the reasons we were able to pivot so quickly in 2020 was because of the adoption of our unique learning systems curriculum that the board adopted several years ago. Our families and our students were able to log in remotely using that curriculum, and our teachers, paraprofessionals, and families were able to work very, very hard for our students with the most significant needs remotely. Another important thing to note is that all of our service providers, from RSP to speech to occupational therapy and adaptive PE, we were able to meet all of our services in students' IEPs remotely very quickly after COVID hit, unlike many other school districts. Another important piece that I really want to acknowledge is the willingness of all of our service providers and assessment teams to continue to do assessments during COVID-19, either remotely or in person. We came together as a district. We were not late with our assessments, as many, many other districts neighboring in our areas have long waiting lists still for their students. So I really want to acknowledge that our team, including our mental health, our educationally related mental health service counselors, were able to also provide the services, the counseling services in our students' IEP remotely. So I really stand here to thank our staff in our special education department for their hard work.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thank you for inviting us to be here. So having said all of that, I think our staff has worked tirelessly, to maintain timelines and ensure that students are receiving their services. And this is all in addition to having a pretty significant staffing shortage, not just in Daly City, but also within the county. We are really struggling to find paraprofessionals for our classrooms, for our students who might have individual needs. We are also really struggling to find special education teachers, both in the resource programs and special day classes. You'll see up here, we also have speech pathologists listed. School nurses has also actually been a pretty significant need this year, probably one of our more difficult positions and needs to find staff for. And then on top of that, because there's a shortage within not just Daly City, but within the county, what we're finding is that other resources that we might typically reach out to for support, particularly for students with more unique needs, such as hearing impairments or vision impairments, for example, there aren't staff to also provide the support that we need. And also programs as a result are being collapsed. And so therefore, when we have students with our more significant needs, typically we might look to the county, for example, for a specialized classroom. And what we're finding is most likely because there are plans to collapse classes or combine classes, we are now needing to think ahead and figure out how we can best support our students, potentially in-house. And so just trying to think through, what will that look like next year, and how we can all work together as a team to meet the needs of our students and continue the great work that our teams have been doing even through the pandemic.
Yes, and I also wanted to make sure that we acknowledge Colleen and Malia, who do an amazing job. They're exceptional at the work they do. I feel staff and principals and administrators are very supported by them, and they often tell me what wonderful work they do. So thank you so much. So just so happened, you've heard me here a couple times talk about many different acronyms that the State Department of Education sends us about compliance. There's many of them, but they've sort of switched it again, which is just fine. And and so this is what this annual determination report is. And it was looking at our compliance monitoring activities around some things we had around timelines, being on time, as well as disproportionality. Jefferson School District for the past 4 years, we've been talking about disproportionality of being overrepresented of Hispanic students, Latinx population in our district in special education. So these are some of the areas that we're doing some really great work on. We're still on time. Our parent input, our 60-day timeline. Many districts in California and across the nation were late on their IEPs. And what Colleen and Malia are referencing is we were not. And in fact, the county told me, the SELPA told us that Jefferson School District is the lowest rate of late IEPs in the SELPA. That's because of our staff, period. They care, they want to get the work done. It's not just about compliance, they care about the students in their activities, and that's why Colleen was sharing what they did during COVID as well. So what that means is when they were looking through our monitoring, at the top is all these different targeted levels that we could have been a part of trying to create reports to look at areas of need for our district. And in fact, well, it was a little scary at first. They made a mistake and they said we were at a certain level. And I was like, what? And I called the SELPA director and we talked about it. And the next day there was a correction made. And we are in compliance only, which basically means they just want us to continue monitor ourselves to assure compliance, which I'm very proud of. It's not that, we have things to look at, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but you don't want to spend time writing reports about why we can't get IEPs done, right? Or why do we not get testing completed? So that really gives us a lot of time to think about some of the issues and some of the challenges that Malia talked about for ourselves. So,
Can I, sorry, can I?
sure, of course, anytime.
Can we back up just a
Yeah.
second?
Yeah, please, anytime.
So the levels that are shown up there, we don't fall in it to any of those levels.
We don't.
Okay.
They actually
So
didn't even.
it still looks bad, like the way that it looks. So I'm going to
Okay.
give you a chance to,
Absolutely.
say, we're not like at level anything of compliance only. That just means anyone, okay, let me ask this question.
Yes, please
Any
ask it.
district needs to stay compliant. Like that's almost like stating the obvious. So is that what they're doing?
That's what they're
Okay.
doing. They basically couldn't say do nothing, right? And so I put that up there because it could have, these are public documents that people can see. So the things at the top were areas that they were monitoring. They didn't put compliance at the end, right? So eventually, I guess what happened is they said, well, Jefferson doesn't fit into any of these, so we'll create a new category called compliance only, because they're not able to say do nothing, basically. So that just meant keep being, I wish it said keep compliant or something like that, rather than compliance only. Very good clarification. I appreciate that. Anytime, interrupt me, please, esteemed board members. So, we have been working very hard for many years about this disproportionality. We've partnered with our general education and special education teams. We had a special education committee members that we got together to talk about this. So as years have gone on, we have been seriously looking at this area. And we've kind of attacked it at different areas. For example, looking at implicit bias, looking at appropriate referrals, looking at appropriate assessments. Jefferson School District early in 2017 was the first district in San Mateo County to adopt something called a pattern of strengths and weaknesses assessment process, which is for school psychologists to do evaluations that would help us to have a more scientific way of seeing if someone really has a processing deficit. They also used other types of techniques called the CLIM to determine if their patterns of strengths and weaknesses were more aligned to a typical English language learner, or was it not? So we are the first district in San Mateo County. Many of our psychologists and teams have done trainings across our SELPA along this area. So what happened is we are very proud to say we are no longer disproportionate. And this just came out to us. So the disproportionality, if you can see that, the status is not disproportionate, not significant disproportionate. And that is due to all of our school teams working through MTSS, our school psychologists, our speech pathologists, or everyone working to really think through, and our gen ed teachers, of course, thinking through how am I looking at this student? Dr. Rios, who talked for our PD day, how are we thinking about our students? How are we making sure that we're achieving? Do we have implicit bias? Do we know how to meet their needs? What are other ways that we can help them perform? And it took quite a bit of time. And we're very proud that this is what's happened. And we're continuing this work because it's not over, right? You have to maintain this type of thinking and process. And so that really was very important for us. And I think many people, it's hard to celebrate sometimes in COVID, getting everyone together and having a celebration about the good work we do, but our staff should be very pleased, and I'm very pleased and proud of my department. I think we really are doing an amazing job, and in San Mateo County, if you were to ask some people down at our county office of ed what we do, I think people will see we're a leader. Thank you. So again, I just said that already, but what we did is do MTSS teams, assessment teams, making sure that kids are not getting eligible for special ed just because of cultural linguistic difference. Special education is not tutoring. It's telling kids they have a disability, and we take that seriously. We're trying to find other pathways for students to get support who are behind for various reasons, but students should not be in special education because they feel they just need support. We've done a good job, and that's really what that said there. So one thing that happened for this 2022, this is for last year, 2021, so we just got it in 2022, is that they did not talk about least restrictive environment. And if some of the board members remember, we've talked a lot about least restrictive environment, which means keeping kids as close to general education as possible, right? They did not monitor it this year. But I'm sure this is still an area we're going to be working on. So we're not going to be giving this up. We are making progress on this. We continue to be talking about universal design of learning in this district. There's workshops that Ms. Scott's working on, and people are there. So this isn't something that we've forgotten, and we continue to work on this, and we continue to want to plan for this, because having kids as close to gen ed as possible to meet their educational needs is the state and the nation's, it's all, what's the word am I looking for? It's our goal, basically. And we don't want to segregate students out from their general education peers unless we really have very, very good evidence that they need more and more restrictive environments. But we don't start with the most restrictive, we start with the least restrictive, which is in their general education classes. So we still have some work probably to do around this. One of the areas for that is because in Jefferson, we have, 16 special day classes, and those special day classes over time, right, are more like county level programs. Right? So kids with significant disabilities. So kids in our special day classes are all kids that might have intellectual disability or autism or other things, but they're not kids with specific learning disabilities. But that still doesn't mean that they don't have access to gen ed kids. Not just recess, lunch, and PE, but also what is appropriate for them, because we're also thinking about transitions to their adult life as they move to high school. Right? They're going to be an adult. They're going to hopefully work. They're going to be able to be in our communities. So this is something that, I wanted to say again, if you're keeping track of areas that we were not compliant in, it was least restrictive environment. They just didn't monitor it this year. But I would just expect it's still work that we need to do. And so, what are we going to do next? Well, we're going to re-engage our special ed committee. That's our hope. Mr. Hagan has been amazingly helpful with that, and all of our team members in Jefferson School District. It really is about stakeholders coming together, people within the district, families in our district coming to help us think through these problems. We want to start, meeting at least 3 times a year again, starting in fall 2022. And I think the focus again will be about LRE. I think that really is what we have to talk about. Mainstreaming, that means kids who are in special day classes going to gen ed, and inclusion, kids who spend all of their time in a general education class who need various types of supports. And we want to make sure our gen ed teachers have the training and background, our paraprofessionals have the training and background to support these students, right? We know that a few years ago, we were trying to make some progress, and we had to slow down a little bit on that because we need to make sure we have the training and experience that people can serve kids properly. It's not about dumping and running kids just so you can meet LRE. We want to do it thoughtfully and plan accordingly. All right, that's all we really had tonight. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you very much for the presentation. Any comments or question from board members?
I do, but I just don't want to go first.
Anyone else want to go first?
Want me to?
Yeah, I don't have a question. I appreciate hearing the update. I will say my biggest concern is the overwhelmment too that you all are carrying with the staffing challenges. And I know that that's not an isolated issue that we face here in the district. But I know when we look specifically at our SPED community, there's an extra layer of the challenge in serving those communities with the level of quality that, not to say that it's non-existent, but it is definitely challenging when you're short-staffed. So we didn't see numbers. I'm not asking for numbers tonight, but I definitely would like to get a sense of what our staffing shortages look like and how you all are impacted. To hear it is one thing, but being a visual learner, I definitely would like to have a better understanding of what you're really facing around that. I mean, I'm hearing recruitment is also challenging, and I think that's all around. But I will say, I don't know if you have any other further feedback. When you said you will be planning and forecasting, I don't know, maybe coming back with numbers. I don't know, Superintendent Vidalis, and I just would love to hear the forecast of how recruitment and just any updates in that area.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. It is sort of a moving target all the time, but like just off the bat, I can say we had 2 inclusion specialist positions open, never filled this year. We have a nurse who we couldn't fill that position. We had a contracted nurse, she left. We have 3 district nurses. This is district nurse. Then we have students that need nursing overall for various significant health needs. Very hard to fill. So some of them, it's a moving target. We have people that go maternity leave, so maybe we need a speech path, or maybe someone goes on maternity leave, we need an RSP or an SDC teacher, and there just isn't anyone around to fill those vacancies. So I think, Mr. Valenti and even Colleen, we were going to job fairs. She was sitting with him talking. We're doing outreach. I mean, I really do feel honestly that Jefferson is a place many people want to work. So when people have an opportunity, we hear that in our interviews. We've heard about your district. We see the support you have. We're just dealing with other types of cost of living and all these other things that many places around the Bay Area are doing, people leaving education for various stressful reasons. So that's why I'm happy to show you, but it's a constantly moving target. I think we were kind of staffed at a certain level, but then certain things happen throughout the year that kind of move us back and forth. I'll be also transparent. In the beginning of the school year, we were very short-staffed with paraprofessionals. Our poor teachers had to start their school with kids who hadn't been in school for a year and a half, that were dysregulated all over the place, our kids, and we just didn't have the paraprofessionals. And Mr. Valenti worked his tail off, so to speak, worked very hard. We worked extremely close to each other, trying to find someone, how do we get these, and we did. We eventually did it. After about a month, we were able to get everyone there. But you can imagine the stress of our staff having a month without the staff that we promised them, basically. And so I'm happy to sit with you or come back to get to share that, but I want to just explain it really is a moving target throughout the year of how it looks. It's not like we're not down like 1 speech pathologist all year or 1 RSP the whole year, if that makes sense. But we were down a school nurse the whole year for sure.
No, and thank you. I mean, we definitely see and hear these reports throughout the year regarding staff all around, but when it comes to the mental health piece, the mental wellness, and also our SPED population in particular, I know that many parents have voiced their concerns and sometimes don't always recognize or the transference of some of the frustration that they are also carrying around providing support for their children. I think sometimes they need to hear exactly what you have shared, that there are certain dynamics that you are facing that are challenges internally that are basically, impacting the learning experience because of these staff shortages. So I appreciate you saying it out loud.
And thank you for asking that question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So I just wanted to thank you all for being here today. And I actually had similar questions that you've answered. And I understand the fluctuations and things change often. And so I guess I don't want numbers, but if we could definitely get continued updates on how things are going, because I also, we had a presentation last time from our counselors, and I think it's also tolling on those that are currently in the role, just because of the capacity and the resources that you have to continue to give to those students. And so making sure that you're able to continue the job and you're able to hopefully stay with our district, because again, we do understand those fluctuations, the cost of living, the fact that, it's overwhelming, especially right now during the pandemic, and us hopefully eventually coming out of this. And so, I think your well-being is very important to us. And so I want to hear, how is that working for you? Is there any other support? Can we talk about other innovative ways to help? Because what we're doing now traditionally may not be working, and we may need to think outside the box. So again, appreciate you all being here and want you to know that we do care about your well-being and we understand the struggles, and we're going to come out of this eventually. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So Dr. Adams knows years ago the reputation that special ed departments all over, but even ours, what we had. And I remember some of those first meetings with you, the conversation was way different than this. So my hat goes off to you. I don't have one on, but I guess I have to give another commendation tonight. My commendation goes to your whole department. This is very serious. So I teach English, but I'm also a education specialist and a case manager. So I understand everything that you've talked about tonight. first of all, to not to be compliant only, that's great, you know. And that's what I'm speaking to when I say that years ago, as you showed, we were at some of those levels. And then also the disproportionality, like that's amazing to accomplish that. And I do have a couple of questions. So knowing the process, just logistics wise, of getting assessments done and on time, how did you do that during shelter in place? Was that done on a district level, or did the individual case managers have to figure out how to do those virtual assessments? So I'm very interested in finding out about this. And I'm sure other districts want to know.
Yeah, I can share. So I'm relatively new to the district. So when I came on, I wasn't here during the full shelter in place. So what would that have been? Right at the beginning of the pandemic. I started the beginning of the school year just after March 2020, right? So when I came on, myself and Dr. Adams and Ms. Miller really worked hard to collaborate with our providers to figure out what was going to make sense with regards to assessments. And we discussed the various options, right? Because I think a lot of districts were toying with the idea of virtual assessments, whether or not those would be valid, and really providing the information we needed for students' assessments. So ultimately, it was really, I would say, with the input of the providers on not only what they felt comfortable with, but truly I think that they really thought about what they felt was going to be best practice and be in the best interest of the students. And so we actually came together and set up basically a clean room, an assessment room that then staff had the option to use when they felt that in-person testing was needed. And there, we made sure we put in all the health and safety precautions following the county guidelines. We consulted with our district nurses. We worked with our maintenance department and the custodial staff on site at our Ben Franklin Special Education office, and really came together, I would say, as a team to put together a plan that allowed for options. So if the team felt that assessments could be completed in a way that would give enough and I would say valid information about a student through a virtual assessment, we would opt for that first, of course, because of students and family safety and health. But when they felt that there were other measures that needed to be done in person, and then we used that clean room. And the staff was great. They were really involved in that process. They were coming up with ideas to how to get creative to see students in person, and not just for the sake of seeing them in person, but also to ensure that the families felt safe with coming in person. Because I think that was a big factor as well, making sure that our families knew that when they brought their student in, and that was the only outing they were doing that week, that it was going to be a safe outing and that it would be in support of their student. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so Mr. Ali, I think that innovation, the creation of an assessment room that had all of the safety precautions in place, many districts focus on what we can't do, and we focused on, well, what can we do and how can we do that safely? And so putting HEPA filters in that room, making sure the windows opened, making sure, this was early on, so paying a lot of attention to making sure that things were sanitized in between uses, things that, as we've learned more about the virus, are less important now, but were important back then with the knowledge that we had. So we just tried, and also the guidance of the department is to help providers know, what can be done virtually that will be valid, and what is necessary to do in an in-person setting, and then setting up that space for people to sign up for it, and then also have time in between for it to be cleaned so the next user can enter it. So that I think is an innovation. I don't know of any other district that did that. I know many other districts did not do that and said, we can't assess in person. It's not allowed. That's not the approach that was taken here. And I think Ms. Mulhern was, and I don't know who else was on your team, but I know that, spending significant amount of time thinking about what needs to be in the space so that it is safe. And then there's the other aspect so that people feel safe. So maybe the cleaning in between was not something that was necessary, but it was something that was necessary because it helped people feel like it was a clean space. So anyhow, so I thank the department for taking that leadership to create that space.
That is, I'm really glad to hear that. Without getting too far into the details, the question of validity, because I was on the other end, I did virtual assessments, and I don't want to throw anyone or any system under the bus. But I had questions in my mind about the validity, because I'm on the screen, you're on the screen. I don't know who's sitting right next to you. And we all know that that process has to be confidential. The parents can't be involved or any, so I'm going to stop there.
Yeah.
So validity. And then my second question was about the nurses. One of you were speaking earlier about the nurses before Dr. Adams spoke about it later. What is the cause of the school nurse shortage, and how can we support bringing back nurses? Because that's an area that was cut, previously. Like I remember when I first became a school board member, nurses, librarians, those, and I know right now with the pandemic, endemic that we're in now, there's lots of money and resources in the health arena. And we just found out recently, Superintendent McGee told us that. I didn't realize that the vax clinics that the schools have been providing have been staffed by school nurses. I had no idea. So how do we magnify that reality and let more nurses know that there's opportunities now, and let the public know that school nurses are the ones who are doing these vaccinations? And I think testing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Miss Miller's been working a lot because we have a lot of, that's really been her charge. She just by chance at some of her schools have this, so I'll let her talk. One clarification I want to say is I want to make very clear, our team, we never required any staff member to do the in-person testing. We set it up, we let people participate. If they didn't feel comfortable, people covered each other. I'll do your assessment for you. You're not comfortable, you're pregnant, I'll do it. That really, I wanted to speak to how amazing I think our staff is, that we never would have mandated that for someone. They thought about it and they supported each other all the way through that. So I just wanted to make that point very clear in case it wasn't clear, that we let people decide. And over time, more and more, I think almost everyone did at the end. Some people were, early adopters, some waited to the end, but it didn't matter. They all supported each other and did assessments, even if it wasn't their school, right, or this place. But if you want to talk about the nursing, I think.
So, unfortunately, like we've been saying, we've been really dealing with nursing shortages, fluctuations. The school nurse, the district nurse position that we've had open, we had filled by an agency because we couldn't find a direct hire, and that person left mid-year. We've been unable to fill that despite having multiple agencies working on that. We also have students with many significant health needs that require either part-time or full-time nursing for their school day. And we've had changes throughout the school year where we can't even find sub-nurses to come in to fill those positions, which of course puts our student at risk during their school day. And we want to make sure we're providing safety for their health needs while they're at school. But it's been a revolving door. The agencies have told us that many of the nurses go to take positions where, quite honestly, they get much better compensation. So, and they have, nurses can pretty much go wherever they want under the conditions that work for them, be it part-time or compensated at a high rate. So it's been very, very hard. I think we have probably about 4 agencies that we work with, and they're all telling us the same thing. So of course it's our students that were unable to meet all of their needs in a very safe way, but luckily we've been, more and more, we're seeing more people come to the agencies that we've been meeting, and I'm hopeful, but it has been a struggle, quite frankly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think that my question wasn't really targeted only to you. It was to all of us and also the Superintendent Vidales, because there's a need for more communication between County Office of Health and County Office of Education. And I know that I'm a part of some of that, trying to foster that communication. But it just feels weird to me to know now that we can't get enough nurses when we were cutting, not us specifically, but, you know, nurses, that position of school nurse. How can I say, when I was in elementary school, every school had a school nurse. And then somehow over the years, schools shared nurses and, you know, all that crazy stuff. So there's an opportunity here. So a nurse should be able to work at Kaiser or at a school and get the same pay. I mean, how do we make those conversations heard, especially for people that are running for public office and those things? You know, we need to hold people accountable and have some real community innovation and solutions to our problems. Sorry if it sounds like I'm on my soapbox, but.
Yeah, so the issue with the nurses are two. One, we have the position of school nurse, which requires, I believe, is it RN level of training? RN level of training plus an additional pupil personnel services certificate. So there's a lot of RNs out there, but they don't have the PPAS certificate, so they're not eligible for school nurse certificated position. We do have the other nurses, service provider nurses, that many of our students with medically based needs require some support around. And those nurses have different levels of training, and we generally contract through an agency for those services because we don't know how long we'll need them. We don't know if the student will be with us much longer. They're going to transfer to another facility. So we don't hire a permanent position. We go through staffing agencies for. And as you mentioned, or somebody mentioned, you know, there's a great need for nurses all over our country. And there's, for families, as Ms. Miller graciously put it, you know, who are able to accept it for their situation. There's the whole travel nurse industry that folks travel and they get paid really, really well, but they do have to sacrifice family life, or, you know, some of them can move with their family. So there's just a lot of movement in that industry, coupled with the number of professionals who are choosing not to work during this time. So you also have a drop in the pool of people participating in the work, in addition to everything else that's happening. So it's helpful to know that people are starting to pop back in. I think, unfortunately, schools got a bad rap. You know, at the beginning of the pandemic, we were the first to close. Everyone's saying schools are dangerous places, don't go near them, kids have germs. Unfortunately, you know, that permeates all of society, and that's, we're finding, is not true. Schools are among some of the safest spaces for individuals to gather. And so hopefully that will start to turn around.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Next item is 11G, resolution number 22-03-23, adoption of school facilities fee. The administration recommends adoption of board resolution number 22-03-23, developer fee justification study for the district, and an increase in statutory school facilities fee, level 1 fee, on new residential construction and reconstruction at $4.79 per square foot, and commercial industrial development at 78 cents per square foot. The proposed fees are authorized by Education Code 176. Yes.
Good evening. So every year we do a school facilities fee study. And so whenever there's new commercial or residential construction, we do, right after the construction gets its permits, they pay a fee and we get some of those proceeds. So as they're developing new things, we get some of those fees to help develop and put money into our schools to address those needs. And so every year we do the study so to have an inflationary adjustment. So the fees go up or down depending on the year. I mean, obviously, in times like this, we're all experiencing some inflation. So you'd expect the school fees to facilities fees to go up. So this resolution is just passing the adjustment and increasing those fees so that we're collecting the maximum that we can for our funding our facilities.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Will our current or future enrollment change any of this?
No.
It's based on an estimate of every new unit will generate X amount of elementary age students, and then they do the study to determine if the district would benefit from something like that. And so we found to qualify for an increased fee.
Any other comments? If not, I will entertain a action on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 220323, adoption of school facilities fee.
Second.
There's a first and a second. May I please get a roll call?
Ms. Leah Inga Anawai,
Yes.
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Koo.
Aye. That was unanimous. Next is item 11H, resolution number 22-03-23A, resolution delegating authority to superintendent or designees to enter change orders for over contract. The administration recommends adoption of resolution number 22-03-23A, resolution delegating authority to superintendent or designees to negotiate change orders outside bid limit and contingency amounts in the over contract. Mr. Fidelis?
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take a stab at this. See if I can explain it. I think I've mentioned to you about the general contractor for our workforce housing project has approached us to say, you know, when we put the bid in, we thought it would cost this much. Since then, there have been cost escalations throughout our raw materials, our labor, and we can't do it for that price. We see we're going to need to increase in these areas. In discussing with our legal counsel about what are the different ways that the board can engage in that process, there were two. One was, well, when the board approved the contract, you approved also a 10% contingency, and it can be a maximum 10%. The increases that the general contractor was requesting exceeded that, so we couldn't use those contingencies. The two choices available were, one, we could modify the contract initially, like right now, to include all of those change orders, but then we would be stuck paying that increased cost regardless of what we were able to negotiate or able to find cost-cutting measures to reduce. The other one is, the one that we're recommending, is that you authorize me and my designees, and it wouldn't be really any designee, it would be me always, but it would be in conjunction with Mr. Lauro and with Mr. Heath, approving change orders up to a certain amount. I think in totality it would be no more than $5 million, but that we come back to the board at subsequent meetings to ask the board to approve those. And that allows, we believe, allows the district the flexibility to be able to negotiate change orders and say, no, we don't think it should cost that much, or actually that change order is part of the original contract, you need to do it for that amount. So I think that this is a way to do it. Functionally, it doesn't really change a lot. It's like the contingency, except the contingency is given a bigger amount, but it still keeps the board, in the approval process. Our general contractor got to the point where we're not going to be able to do the work unless you approve some of these change orders, because we have contracts that we have to approve that are contingent upon this. And so we're able to work with them to identify what those are. And maybe we just approve them at a slower pace instead of all at once, and then we're stuck needing to pay that higher price. So I hope that explains it well enough, Mr. Lauro. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, yeah, it's sufficient, but also just to piggyback off Superintendent Vidal's, due to the cost of construction and inflation of just raw materials and supplies going up, it gives us more leverage when, instead of saying, all right, we're going to increase the contract in its entirety by 25% or 15%, we're able to find different ways, like you said, to kind of negotiate on what are the increases in some areas and other areas where there's not increases. So there's not just a flat amount where they're going to hit that top dollar amount. But we could try to find ways to save as much money as we can while still completing the project in a timely manner.
So as you read the resolution, you saw that there was one phrase that made my eyes, what? Like, says the superintendent shall be personally responsible to reimburse the district for any malfeasance. I'm like, what? What is, I do not have $1 million. Like, I cannot do this, So that's why I said, well, we're going to do this. We're going to do this to the best of our knowledge. I said, Mr. Heath, Mr. Lauro, you guys will be making this decision with me. I'm not making these decisions by myself. We're going to take notes, and we're going to keep track of what we discussed and how we decided. So that way, maybe I don't have to pay $1 million in the future.
Did you?
And yeah, I was just to confirm, there's a feedback loop between Mr. Heath, Superintendent Vidalis, and myself when we're going through these different requests from our contractor, ensuring that they make sense, going through our legal team to make sure that, they're following their timelines of what this needs to be done, and making sure that it stays, it doesn't go off the rails in regards to the budget.
So, well, number one, thank you for bringing up what you said about you being paying back, because I saw that and it was going to be one of my questions. I'm like, that doesn't sound reasonable. And if, well, yes, but yes. So I just want to make sure that there's some processes in place to ensure that exactly the feedback loop that you were talking about. Also making sure, because obviously, as we all see with the gas prices and everything that's going on, I just assuming that this is kind of a domino effect that's happening just around us with regards to these raw materials and things that we're doing, and making sure that, again, the project doesn't go off the timeline, because obviously this is super important for us and we wouldn't be moving forward with this, but at the same time that it doesn't go out of budget, and then now we're going into funds that we want to use for other programs, then ends up affecting other things that we want to do as a district, like giving our teachers a raise or whatever it is. So again, thank you for bringing that up and engaging us in the sense that there will be feedback with legal and as well with our finance team, just to ensure that there are no holes in this process as we move through. So thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to better understand the $5 million. Is that per request?
No,
That's
it's
the most?
I stop when we hit $5 million of change order approvals.
Okay.
And we approached that because we saw the list of change orders that our contractor gave us, and it approached it was like $4,996,000, something like that. And so we just thought 5 million is a good cap. I would hope that it doesn't happen, but I would assume that if it needs to exceed that, we would come back with another resolution that you would authorize a greater amount. And we don't think, we've looked at their lists of of change orders, and we can whittle some of that down. So it does give us a little bit of space for future things. Change orders truly that are necessary because they're not in the scope and they were not known at the time. Those are the kinds of change orders we typically do. And then other change orders that are due to escalations. If it was something that should have been predicted, we keep it in the general contract. So you agree to do it for $10, so we're going to pay you $10. That's what we agreed to. So, but right now, because they do need to enter into contract with the builders of the modular units, they need to know that the district's willing to also contribute more to that building, because that's going to cost more.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have now another question. So if by chance they come back and they say it's going to be more than that 5 million and you come back to us, is there a possibility that, hopefully this does not happen, that you tell us where that funding is going to come from, where that money is going to come from, how it's going to affect other things that we're working on? Because I work in an industry where this happens a lot, and it always goes over and it always affects other things. And I just am really concerned about all the other things we want to accomplish in our district this
So
year.
Mr. Lauro and I were just having that conversation today about how do we inform the board. I think it will start with the folks who are on the Budget and Facilities Subcommittee. We'd meet with that group. I forget exactly who it is. But we'd start there to talk about the issue and then discuss how do we inform the board on the larger picture. So right now, that additional $5 million would be coming from what we call Fund 40, but what it really is proceeds from the sale of the Christopher Columbus property up at the top here of Lakeshire, sold a long time ago. I was around, but I can't put a date on it. Maybe 2010, 2011. And so those have been sitting, waiting for use. And so 5 million additional dollars would be going toward the housing project.
Yeah, so luckily in the past, when it comes to school districts, when you close the end of the school year, we would use Fund 40 to help us provide positive cash flow at the year end. So, I think under prior Assistant Superintendent Julie Kessler, she was very prudent and safeguarded district funds to make sure that, in the case that we do have change orders, because we know the cost of construction, the cost of raw materials are all going up, we will have a safety blanket to help us with that, with its limitations. But for now, we're going to be okay. And it won't affect directly to Fund 1 or other programs within the school district.
Now that you're mentioning that, I'm starting to recall having those conversations with Ms. Kessler about change orders, and she was putting, I remember that. I just don't remember.
Yeah,
being
you
called
remember
Fund
her
40.
motto says cash is king, and how important it was that we maintain cash, because many budget years, deferral is a strategy that the state uses. Like, instead of getting your money by June 30th, they say, we're going to give you your money, but it's not coming until July 15th. But we still have to pay our paychecks and everything on June 30th. So we would use this fund to help float us until July 15th, when the money would come in. Now we'll still have some funds in there. We may just need to be like every other school district and take out tax revenue anticipated notes, which is sort of the legal term for school district loans that are offered to, and most school districts take advantage of it because especially some of our basic aid districts, even though they get a lot of money, they only get it at 2 times a year. So there's always a couple of months where they're like, we know it's coming, but we don't have it now, and we need it now. We need to make our payroll. So anyway, so we'll just be like every other school district if it gets there.
Any other comments, questions from board members? It's resolutions requiring action. I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 220323A, delegating authority to superintendent or designee to enter change orders for over AA.
Second.
There's a first and a second. May I please get a roll call?
Ms. Leah Inga Anawai,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Oh, aye.
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye, that was unanimous. Thank you for the explanations. We appreciate it. Next item is item 12E, job description for EL support teacher. The administration recommends approval of the job description for an EL support teacher. These positions will be funded by short-term state and federal relief funds. Mr. Valenti.
Yes, good evening, everybody. So one of the federal program monitoring findings was that the district was found to be out of compliance with their EL, English Learner Newcomer program, because students were not being provided full access to the core curriculum. So EL students must be enrolled in grade level courses along their English only peers. And students also need to be, those students that are English learners need to be provided designated English language development classes. So in order to be in compliance with that, the district would like to be, has created a position called an English language support teacher. And the role of the English language support teacher is to provide English language development instruction to students at their varied levels of English proficiency and to assist in providing the access to the grade level academic content. So we'd like to, it's a 2-year position right now. The funding is through ESSER funds. And so we would be posting it for internal transfers. And then should we not be able to find sufficient staffing, we would potentially go outside of the district for that. But I believe you've got copies of the job description. And the recommendation is, in order to, for us to move forward with that, that the board consider it. Any questions that I can answer?
Thank you, Ms. Valenti. Any questions or comments from board members? If not, I will entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve the job description for EL support teacher as written.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
That was unanimous. Next item is item 12F, updated job description for the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. The administration recommends approval of the updated job description for the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. Changes made bring job description in line with duties required by federal budgets. Mr. Valenti.
Okay, thank you very much. Another one of the findings was that the Assistant Superintendent for Ed Services position, we needed to be specific about the responsibility of supporting private school equitable services. So the current job description is 99.9% unchanged. There's one addition, and that was one of the representative duties, which was to include private school consultation for development of plans to utilize qualified federal state program funds. So that's the extent of the addition to the job description, and that would bring us into compliance. Excuse me.
Yeah. The FPM, the Federal Program Monitoring, happens about every 2 years, and they select random school districts in California that receive title funding or federal funding. And they like to call it not an audit, but a compliance measure, but it's an audit. And by doing this, we don't face any financial repercussions. But yeah, so we just go around that and we make sure that we are in compliance and we don't have to pay any federal monies back.
Perfect, because we might need to use it for change orders. No.
Correct.
I'm just
Thank Thank you, Mr. Valencia and Ms. Alaro. Any other comments or questions from board members? If not, I will entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve the updated job description for the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services.
Second?
First and a second, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That was unanimous. Thank you again. Next is item 13A, retirement classified personnel. The administration recommends approval of the retirement request from the following classified employee and requests an appropriate resolution be prepared commending him for his years of service with the district. Renee Gomez, custodian 1 at Susan B. Anthony, and T.R. Policita. Date of hire was June 23rd, 1983, effective April 30th, 2022. Mr. Valencia as well.
Yeah, so when I entered the 8th grade, Renee Gomez was hired to be a custodian here in our district. I was fortunate enough to work with him during my time at TRP, and several of his children worked in our after-school programs. He is working on his 38th year here with our district and has now chosen the path to move towards retirement, and I want to thank him for all of his years of service. He's a wonderful person. His family's just fantastic and really great person in our district, and I want to wish him the best of luck in his retirement. Thank you.
I would like to make the motion that we approve the retirement request from following classified employee, Renee Gomez, and also thank him for his service. My son graduated from that school, and the last time I was there, Mr. Gomez asked me how my son was doing. I said, "Oh, thank you." So yeah, and that we prepare. An appropriate resolution commending him for his years of service with the district.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That was unanimous, and congratulations, Mr. Gomez. Thank you for many, many years of service for our district. Next item is item 14, persons wishing to address the board. This portion of the agenda is available for individuals to comment on or address the board on any issue that is under the board's jurisdiction and not on the agenda. Maximum time allowed for any speaker is 2 minutes. Are there any speakers tonight?
We do not have speakers for this.
Okay, cool. Thank you. If not, next item is item 15, governance team member comments, reports, and board meeting reflection. I will start on my right this time. Any comments?
I don't have any specific comments, just to continue to wish everyone well and to stay safe. We're talking about a new variant, but I also know it's allergy season too, so it's like trying to balance that. And I also want to say I appreciate the resolution that I get to weigh in to be excused. Unfortunately, my family continues to be impacted by COVID. I had shared with Superintendent Vidalis that I had lost 3 family members back to back. And so I really just want to encourage everyone to continue to be mindful as we, see a lot of the protocols being lifted and relaxed. The reality is there are a lot of folks who are still compromised in many different ways due to their health that are impacted differently with COVID still. And it continues to hit my family. I have 2 more funerals upcoming, again, COVID related. So it continues to just blow me away that we seem to be moving forward, and in other communities, we're still moving backwards. So just continue to be well and be safe, and encourage everyone to just appreciate every day and every moment. Take care.
I was going to say Superintendent Vidalis spoke too soon when I didn't make comments earlier. But no, I actually echo Trustee Liaganai's statements. I think, let's definitely continue to be safe. It is terrible that we are still going through this pandemic, new variants, people still, perishing. And so, thankful to everyone here that is still wearing their mask. For those of us that, have not gotten vaccinated, please continue to try to do so. It is Women's History Month, and, we want to celebrate the women in our district, our students, and obviously spring break is coming up. So remaining safe, taking that test by the time you come back to school to ensure that we are keeping everyone safe, including, the higher generations in our families that may be more susceptible to these diseases. So great meeting tonight, and looking forward to these continued conversations.
Just wanted to say that I'm glad that we always keep our focus on the best interests of our students. Thank you.
And for me, just, there were a lot of discussions talked about things that we've done in the past as well as in the future. So kind of focusing on working towards the future and learning from the past. I felt that we did that tonight. And just wish everybody happy spring break, stay safe, stay healthy. Yeah. Also, I realized that I've been forgetting Mr. Vidal in these comments and reflections. So I was going to ask Mr. Vidal if he had any comments or reflections as well, too.
Well, thank you for remembering. I'm always ready, just in case you ask. But I'm always glad to pass if that's important. No, I just think the comments about March being Her Story Month, I think, I'm not going to say the performance, but the presence of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson today and the last couple of days have made me very proud to be an American, to see the level of restraint and control that she can maintain in the midst of others acting very un-American, in my opinion, is just amazing. And it's not new. It's, people of color, women of color have learned to restrain. And I just think, it's something we all can really learn from. And I think she will be an amazing justice. I look forward to reading her opinions. And I think she's very inspirational.
Thank you.
It has nothing to do with our meeting. I thought we did. I thought we did great in our meeting. And Mr. Koo, how many minutes did I estimate correctly?
A little over.
A little over.
A
Okay.
little under. So I will adjourn our meeting tonight at 8:38 p.m. Thank you so much for attending tonight.